Okay, this is the recording for unit number 2, Cellular Functions Test. I will read through each question and the answer choices. It is all multiple choice. There are 30 questions. Please feel free to stop, to pause, and replay any questions you want to hear a second time. If you want it to be, take a slower pace, whichever. It is up to you. You do have time and a half. So it's a 30-minute test or 30-question test. Generally, 30 minutes should be sufficient. We'll be giving you one full period to do this so that you get your time and a half. Please make sure to follow along and select your answers carefully. Okay, question number 1. Which organisms and set of characteristics are correctly paired? A, fungi carry out photosynthesis and heterotrophic nutrition. B, plants carry out respiration and autotrophic nutrition. C, decomposers carry out photosynthesis and autotrophic nutrition. Or D, animals carry out autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. Question number 2. Autotrophs might survive when heterotrophs cannot because autotrophs are able to A, reproduce asexually, B, become dormant, C, exist without respiration, or D, make their own food. Question number 3. The chart below contains both autotrophic and heterotrophic organisms. Row A reads across owl, cat, shark. Row B reads across mouse, corn, dog. Row C reads across squirrel, bluebird, alga. Organisms that carry out only heterotrophic nutrition are found in A, row A only, B, row B only, C, rows A and B, or D, rows A and C. Question number 4. The chart below lists substances involved in the process of photosynthesis. A, glucose. B, oxygen. C, carbon dioxide. D, water. Which statement best describes how these substances interact in photosynthesis? Answer choice A says A and B combine to produce C and D. Answer choice B says B and C combine to produce A and D. Answer choice C says C and D combine to produce A and B. Answer choice D says A and C combine to produce B and D. Question number 5. During the process of photosynthesis, energy from the sun is converted into A, chemical energy in the bonds of inorganic molecules, B, chemical energy in the bonds of organic molecules, C, enzymes used to produce inorganic molecules, or D, enzymes used to produce organic molecules. Question number 6. 2 biological processes that occur in certain organelles are represented in the diagrams below. CO2, O2, O2, CO2. We have process X and we have process Y. The question, which statement is correct regarding the types of organisms able to carry out these processes? A, process X occurs in heterotrophs, but not in autotrophs. Process Y occurs in consumers, but not in producers. C, both processes X and Y occur in all living things. D, both processes X and Y occur in green plants. Question number 7. The diagram below represents a change in guard cells that open and close pores in a plant. Take a look at the illustrations here. We have an open pore, the guard cell, and the closed pore. This change directly helps to A, increase heterotrophic nutrition, B, absorb minerals, C, regulate water loss, or D, reduce seed production. Question number 8. The diagram below illustrates the movement of materials involved in a process that is vital for the energy needs of organisms. We have water and oxygen, carbon dioxide, and glucose. The question, the process illustrated occurs within A, chloroplasts, B, mitochondria, C, ribosomes, or D, vacuoles. Question number 9. The diagram below represents a cross-section of a plant structure. Please take note of A, B, C, and D. Which letter indicates the region where most autotrophic nutrition takes place? Is it A, B, C, or D? Question number 10. In the diagram of a young corn plant below, which letter indicates a structure that is adapted for carrying out the chemical reactions of photosynthesis? Take note of A, B, C, and D. Select your response. Again, the question, which letter indicates a structure that is adapted for carrying out the chemical reactions of photosynthesis? Is it A, B, C, or D? Remember, if I'm reading too fast, you can pause this video so that you can keep pace. Question number 11. The diagram below represents events associated with a biochemical process that occurs in some organisms. Sun, carbon dioxide, oxygen. And underneath we have water here. Which statement concerning this process is correct? A, the process represented is respiration, and the primary source of energy for the process is the sun. B, the process represented is photosynthesis, and the primary source of energy for the process is the sun. C, this process converts energy in organic compounds into solar energy, which is released into the atmosphere. D, this process uses solar energy to convert oxygen into carbon dioxide. Question number 12. Which cell structure is represented by the three-dimensional diagram below? We have lipid molecules and we have protein molecules here. Again, which cell structure is represented by the three-dimensional diagram below? A, chloroplast, B, mitochondrion, C, plasma membrane, or D, replicated chromosome. Number 13. While looking at the bottom surface of a leaf with a compound light microscope, a student notices pairs of cells with openings between them on the surface of the leaf. The main purpose of these openings and the cells that surround them is A, removing excess sugars, B, synthesis of carbon dioxide, C, regulating gas exchange, D, purification of. Question number 14. The diagram below represents a portion of a cell membrane. We see external environment, ATP, H+, H+ pump, H+, 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 cytoplasm. The arrow indicates that the cell membrane is carrying out the process of A, respiration, B, cell recognition, C, diffusion, or D, active transport. Halfway, question number 15. The diagram below represents the results of the net movement of a specific kind of molecule across a living cell membrane. Direction of movement of molecules. Membrane. Side A, side B. The movement of molecules from side A to side B is an example of the process of A, active transport, B, chromatography, C, cellular respiration, or D, diffusion. Question number 16. The diagram below represents a cell and some molecules in its environment. You see we have all different shapes for the molecules, and we have a key. It tells us what represents molecule 1, molecule 2, molecule 3, or molecule 4. The question, which molecule would require the use of energy in order to be brought into the cell? A, 1, B, 2, C, 3, or D, 4. Question number 17. Which substance can enter a cell by diffusion without having to be digested? A, water, B, protein, C, starch, or D, fat. Question number 18. Molecule X moves across a cell membrane by diffusion. Which row in the chart below best indicates the relationship between the relative concentrations of molecule X and the use of ATP for diffusion? We have the row, we have movement of molecule X, use of ATP. Row number 1, high concentration to low concentration, used. Number 2, high concentration to low concentration, not used. Row number 3, low concentration to high concentration, used. Row number 4, low concentration to high concentration, not used. Is the answer A, 1, B, 2, C, 3, or D, 4? And again, the question is, Molecule X moves across a cell membrane by diffusion. Which row in the chart below best indicates the relationship between the relative concentrations of molecule X and the use of ATP for diffusion? Question number 19. Which life process carried out by a green plant is represented in the diagram below? We have food, oxygen, energy released, carbon dioxide, and water. In the center, it's the life process. The answer is A, respiration, B, photosynthesis, C, digestion, or D, replication. Question number 20. During the process of cellular respiration, energy is released from A, carbon dioxide, B, oxygen atoms, C, water molecules, or D, chemical bonds. Question number 21. The energy used to obtain, transfer, and transport materials within an organism comes directly from A, ATP, B, DNA, C, sunlight, or D, starch. Question number 22. The diagram below represents a biochemical process. Glucose, cellular respiration. Waste products, X. Excretion, cellular activities. Which molecule is represented by X? A, DNA, B, starch, C, protein, or D, ATP. Base your answers to questions 23 and 24 on the diagram below. The diagram illustrates a process by which energy is released into organisms. We have nutrient, sugar, plus oxygen, water, carbon dioxide, energy. Question number 23. The energy released in this process was originally present in A, sunlight and then transferred to sugar, B, sunlight and then transferred to oxygen, C, the oxygen and then transferred to sugar, D, the sugar and then transferred to oxygen. Question number 24. Which molecule stores the energy produced by cells in the reaction above? A, glucose, B, ATP, C, oxygen, or D, enzymes. Coming up to the end here. Question number 25. What are possible products of certain types of anaerobic respiration? A, water and oxygen. B, pyruvic oxygen and glycerol. C, nitrogen, gas, and ammonia. D, alcohol and carbon dioxide. Question 26. The diagram below shows a sequence of events that often occurs in human muscle cells. Skeletal muscle, vigorous activity, insufficient oxygen. X, causing muscle fatigue. The substance represented by the letter X is most likely A, hemoglobin, B, glycogen, C, ethyl alcohol, or D, lactic acid? Base your answers to questions 27 and 28 on the chemical reactions below. Select the chemical reaction from the list below that is most closely associated with the statement. Okay, chemical reactions. Number 1, 2 pyruvic acid, 2 ethyl alcohol, plus 2 CO2. Chemical reaction number 2, 2 pyruvic acid to 2 lactic acids. Chemical reaction number 3, 2 pyruvic acid plus 6O2 to 6H2O plus 6CO2 plus 34 ATP. Number 27. This reaction occurs in humans when muscle cells do not receive an adequate supply of oxygen. Is it number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4? Number 28. This reaction is used in the brewing industry. A1, B2, C3, or D4. Question number 29. Which process is involved in the movement of gases illustrated in the diagram below? We have O2, O2, CO2, and CO2. A is diffusion, B, osmosis, C, phagocytosis, or D, pinocytosis. And last but not least, question number 30. Base your answer to the following question on the diagram below of a cell organelle and on your knowledge of biology. We have the stroma and the grana. Which event associated with the release of oxygen from this organelle has been investigated with the use of the isotope oxygen 18? A, storage of light energy by chlorophyll. B, Pigalle synthesis during the dark reaction. C, production of polysaccharides from glucose. Or D, splitting of water during the light reaction. That is the end of reading the test, Unit 2, Cellular Functions.